Hey everybody, this is Franco, and I wanted to give you another update on the Precision Matthews PM-25MV CNC conversion that I'm working on. And as you can see, we have covers. We have the way covers installed. This is the factory cover. This is a factory cover. And this is one that I added. So this is the cover that's going to hopefully protect the front side of the Y-axis slide, as well as the the coupler and the motor, all that stuff, keep the chips off of it. And the way that it extends over to the right a little bit. And the idea there is that it will also cover the Y-axis limit switches and things. So you can see when you're looking at it from this direction that most everything as far as a limit switch is underneath something. So I am hoping that by doing that, let's see if I can get over here. So this thing right here, it covers up the X-axis switches. Y-axis switches are down here. Well, there's only one switch in each axis. So there's the Y-axis switches down here underneath the table. The little trip plate here, the little dog or whatever you want to call this, that is actually underneath the rubber. So I'm hoping that this design is sufficient to protect these switches even if I decide to run flood coolant on this thing. And I think it will, because there's really no, I mean, the coolant may drip down here through some cracks and everything, but there shouldn't be any opportunity for it to directly spray on any of these switches. But hey, we'll see. This is a prototype, so once I get this thing in service, I can fully test all that. Also have the plastic chip guard here. Let me just get this machine back into a position where I can get at everything. Okay, so here we have this nifty plastic chip guard, which to me it kind of looks like a fish tank. That's what I seem to keep calling it in my inner monologue. Got the fish tank chip guard on here, and the reason why I like this setup, it's small, so I didn't really, where I'm installing this thing, I don't really have room to have a big giant enclosure all the way around the machine. So I'm going with this fish tank type of configuration. And this works out for me most of the time. And the reason is, when I install my vise, I don't generally install it with the handle out here. I usually install it with the fixed jaw here and the handles inside the fish bowl. So the vise actually fits inside this way, and then I can put this cover on. And the reason why I do that is by putting the fixed jaw over here, I can use like almost all of the Y-axis travel of the machine, where when you install the vise, well, actually, you can see on the Grizzly, I do have the vise turned around right now. When you install the vise this way, you lose some travel, and if you let the vise overhang the table, what happens, the vise will run into the column when you're all the way, I guess that would be Y negative. So my opinion, by turning the vise 90 degrees, by installing it this way, you get to use more of your Y-axis travel. So that is the plan there. Now, one thing that this fish bowl or fish tank does, it does, I have to give up a couple inches of, like, I think maybe 2 inches of travel in the Z-axis, which one option would be to cut this thing out, which is what I did on the Grizzly. I actually notched it, and that was okay, but what the problem is, when you notch it, this is like a prime area where chips want to fly, against it. So what happens, this little opening allows the chips to go everywhere. So I found I was always shoving a piece of cardboard back in there. Actually, here's a piece right there. I would, tuck a piece of cardboard in to keep the chips from flying out. So what I did on this one, in anticipation of having to maybe possibly take this cover off and on, what I did, if I can undo this with one hand, I'll show you. I made it so it's going to be easier to remove the cover. So kind of, let's see, hopefully this is going to work. I made these little speed nuts. You can see what they are is they're shaped in such a way that when you're like this, they fall into the T-slot. But then when you start to tighten it, they go like that, and they lock up really, really well. More than enough for a little bracket to hold the cover on. So that's my plan. When I need to get down really low and close to the table, yeah, I mean, you can see how long that took. It took like 30 seconds. I can just pop this plastic cover off and away I go. Of course, then I'm going to have chips flying everywhere, but I'll clean them up. Can't have everything, right? Okay, so there it is. That's hopefully the last bit of work here that I need to do to the machine before I put it into its final resting place here in my garage. So the good news is I'm going to get to use this PM-25MV soon, and I can't wait to see how well it works. The bad news is the good old Grizzly is going to have to find a new home. And if I had space, I would keep both of the machines. I would just tuck the Grizzly in the corner. But I don't have that much space, so the Grizzly has to go. So yeah, it's a little sad. I kind of really have come to appreciate the old Grizzly. I have made a lot of parts with this machine, and it served me really well. So it's a little bittersweet seeing the old Grizzly go to a new home. But it's not good to get emotionally attached to material things, so got to do what you got to do. So the Grizzly is going to move on out of here. I am going to cut out this workbench, and the Precision Matthews is going to get fastened right to the floor, and it's going to actually be mounted on its own little blue sheet metal stand. All right, well, thanks for watching. Hope you found that interesting. Maybe it'll give you some ideas for how you want to do your CNC conversion. I've had a few of you ask me if I ever plan on selling this as a kit, and the answer to that question is I think so. I'm still, like I said, this is still kind of a prototype. I'm working it all out. I would never want to sell something unless I think the design is as good as I can make it. And so far this is working out really well. But I want to use it for a bit and refine it a little bit before I would ever sell these to anyone. But I'm feeling pretty optimistic. I think this is a good design. Okay, thanks for watching. Be safe.